Hi, this is Neve from Manage with Clarity, and welcome to my webinar where you're going to become more aware and learn a great tool to manage your anger. So again, just like last week, I didn't properly record the first 10 minutes, so I'm re-recording that now. And after that, you'll join the live webinar. Okay, so I'm going to start with a quote from Byron Katie. And that's putting the blame or judgment on someone else leaves you powerless to change your experience. Taking responsibility for your beliefs and judgments gives you the power to change them, which is really exciting and empowering. And that's what this work is about. It's about shifting from victim to empowerment. Same situation, we don't need our situation to change, just our thinking, our mind. And when we have clarity and empowerment around our situations, they become much easier to address and to manage. So you're in the right place right now. If you're currently dealing with a difficult or hurtful person and want help with dealing with that, or it could be a difficult situation, even illness or something that just isn't going your way, so you can be angry at God or the universe for that. Also, if you can't let go of the hurt from a past experience with a difficult or hurtful person, that could even be from childhood. You might be carrying it all this time. So let me just introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Neve. It's pronounced Neve and it is spelled Niamh. It's a good Irish name. I'm Irish. I've been living in Geneva, Switzerland for about 20 years, coming and going. Lived in Nairobi, Kenya, and Chiang Mai, Thailand for a little bit in between, and also Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. But Geneva feels most like home now. What led me to this webinar was I found a way to stop the pain that I had from anger before I found the work that I do now, which is the work of Byron Katie. I'm a certified facilitator. I used to have a lot of physical symptoms in my body, my solar plexus, my diaphragm, my neck, shoulders, my back were all really affected by stress and pain. And I would go to an osteopath, a chiropractor for my sore back, or for some body work, some energy work. And it was great. If I did massage, for example, it would get rid of the pain, but inevitably the pain would always come back. And that's because as soon as I left the massage or the body treatment, the thinking would come back in. If I was upset with somebody, that would come back. And of course, all the physical symptoms would come with it. When I started doing this work, the physical symptoms disappeared. I had chronic back pain. I have zero back pain now, apart from when I'm on the computer too much or rushing around with 3 children, but it never lasts. And because I've got a fantastic tool to address that now. So I loved it so much and got so much from it that I decided to certify in the method, the work of Byron Katie, and I started my coaching company, Manage with Clarity. And that's what I do full-time now. I work mainly over Skype, sometimes in person, with clients, and also do group programs and workshops. So anger is like a toxin to your body. I really believe that. You know, smoking, drinking, etc. We know about those toxins, but these negative energies are also like toxins. Now, I should mention that anger can also be very positive if it's dealt with in a healthy way, and I would by no means say don't feel angry and stop feeling your anger. Definitely not. It's an energy that needs to go through us. It's when we hold on to it and don't deal with it in a healthy way that it becomes toxic, and that's what we're talking about today. So getting angry is like taking a small dose of some slow-acting poison, arsenic, for example, every day of your life. So, and that quote should read, getting unhealthily angry, or if it goes on and on and on, and you don't deal with it, that's the anger I'm talking about. Yeah. And common ways that we escape that anger, those feelings of discomfort when we really just don't know how to address it is by either going on Facebook distractions, alcohol, chocolate, over in excess. There's so many gambling, sex addiction, so many different ways of escaping that pain, and that's how we learn to cope with it. And of course, when we do, it manifests. The anger will manifest itself in different ways, um, many different ways. Physical effects of anger. A very common one is not sleeping well. When you address it, you'll sleep much better. I promise. Tense neck, shoulder, jaw is a big one. When you're feeling so angry with somebody, we can hold it there. Sore back, headaches, low energy, it zaps our energy. High blood pressure, heart disease, very common. And unresolved anger can lead to cancer. Of course, there's many things that can lead to cancer, but when we don't deal with our emotions in a healthy way, when we keep them in instead of letting them out and letting that energy flow through us, it can lead to many different kinds of illness. Lots of evidence there to prove that. And there's evidence to suggest that it can kill us quicker than smoking can. I'm not going to go into the details of all of that today. I should mention I'm giving a 6-week program. I'm running a 6-week program called Inner Peace for Outer Success, starting the 9th of April, and I will address those in a lot more detail there. It saps your enjoyment of life. Like I said, if we're holding on to some story about somebody, then we're not able to be present to enjoy and show up for the life that we do have now. It can lead to a loss of job. There's conflict in corporate environments is so common, and unresolved conflict can lead to loss of job basically, and financial instability, which has huge effects on children and families. It erodes relationships. Anger erodes relationships. It resides deep in a person's soul, affecting reactions, the ability to love, and even physical health. If you go looking for evidence and quotes about it, you'll find them in abundance. And then on the other side of the coin are the overwhelming benefits for dealing with anger. Just think about how much pain and fear could be avoided by people dealing with their own anger. This work, the work of Byron Katie, it has avoided so much pain and fear in my life, pain for myself, and also, of course, when you're feeling stressed and angry, we unintentionally inflict a lot of pain and anger on others sometimes. So much of that can be avoided by dealing with it. And imagine also how much money governments and people would save by following an anger management program. Just even thinking about all those visits to the chiropractor and for massage, etc. And think about all those wars that could be avoided as well, just by dealing with it and getting clear about our thinking. Okay, so here is where I remembered to record the webinar properly. So you're going to go to the live webinar now. So I hope you enjoy it. Please send any questions and any feedback to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'm here to help. Thank you. Okay, so just this was news to me, and I'm just going to briefly share this with you. By the way, I will mention at the end I'm doing a 6-week program, and I'll be addressing this topic in a lot more detail. So I won't be giving you a biology lesson on anger, but I'll be covering this in more detail. But it's really interesting to know, I find, what happens in our bodies when you're triggered by anger. So when you see somebody that comes in and you get that feeling or furious, if it's something, a big trigger, what happens is adrenaline and cortisol surge with the anger trigger. Your heart beats faster, blood pressure rises, arteries, and that's my picture there, of the artery on the right is fat cells are emptied into it, and basically one morning the blood will no longer be able to pass through, and the latest heart attack victim emerges. That's what happens. And the trigger there is from anger. Okay, so I also want to emphasize that this is definitely not your fault. If you're feeling, oh gosh, yeah, I can relate, I have those symptoms, and I really get triggered very easily. this is the way that it's a coping mechanism, anger. Actually, A Course in Miracles says that anger is the mask that fear wears. And I love that. Anger is a way of temporarily overcoming feelings of fear, helplessness, and lack of control. So please don't beat yourself up about it. It serves no useful purpose at all. We're just here to look at how we can make it better. And yeah, that's the good news. It can be different. Your life can be much brighter. So let's have a look at how. Okay, with a nice diagram. Actually, the how is the work of Byron Katie, but let me just explain the theory behind that first. So what happens is you get a trigger. So you think about somebody in your life that is triggering you, that makes you angry. So you have a stimulus or event that occurs. And then based on your thinking, that trigger goes into your thinking, into your mind. And based on your past history, your culture, your mood, your values, etc., you're going to feel a certain way. Okay, based on whatever is going on in your mind, your beliefs in your mind. Based on the way you feel, you'll act in a certain way and you'll have a certain result. So what we do in the work of Byron Katie is we work on number 2, the filter, so that when you get the trigger, you'll have a nicer result. You're not going to have that still anger and stuck feeling. Okay, let me know if you like my little diagram. I love it, and it might be just a little bit too mathematical, so I'd love feedback on that. Thanks. Okay, so here's examples of triggers. A slow car in front of you in traffic and you're late for work. Who hasn't been there when you're believing that person shouldn't drive so slow? And notice the tension in your body when that happens, and when you're believing that you need to be somewhere by a certain time instead of just letting go. That's one example of a trigger. Another common example, feeling unappreciated. They should be grateful for what I'm doing for them. As parents, we can feel that, or in work, if our boss isn't grateful. So many examples with family, they should be grateful that I gave up my Saturday to help, etc. So that can be a big trigger. Children, like I said, they're my teachers. Children acting up can be a big trigger. There's so many, and I'm sure I don't need to help you with finding examples. You've got many examples in your life yourself. And these examples, I'd love for you from now on to think of them as your guru. That person that you're choosing today for the purpose of this call to judge is your teacher. Okay, if we look at it like that, it's a lot more empowering, that we're no longer a victim of whatever is happening. If we look at that person that's coming to help us to grow in a certain way, then use them to our advantage. Yeah, use the person to learn a lesson from. And if you don't deal with the situation and develop that skill set, it will continue to show up in different situations until you deal with it. That's why, if you say, oh, why do I always attract really guys that aren't nice? Or why do I always get to be picked on in class? Or, it's like once you learn how to deal with it and let go, these situations might come back in your life and you're clear, you know how to deal with them. So they're no longer going to affect you. So that's the great incentive for dealing with situations. When you develop that skill set, it's not going to show up anymore like it used to. So think about also in your life, what is it that always shows up for you? What is life trying to teach you? What lesson? Okay, so let's get to work. We're going to think about somebody in our life that we feel angry about. And maybe angry might be a strong word. You might say, oh, they just annoy me or they irritate me. They might make you furious. So you just choose your emotion. And what I want you to do, if you look down at the bottom, I am blank, and there you choose your emotion. So I am angry with X, being the person. Think about a person who makes you angry because. And then you fill it in very, very briefly. On thework.com, I'll give you the link to the work.com at the end, but there's lots of explanation from Byron Katie on how to fill out these sentences. There's a worksheet called a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet where you get to really fill out get to really identify all the stressful thoughts around a particular situation. But just for today, I'm keeping it simple, and I'd like you to keep it simple too. So really summarize. Don't say I am angry with Mary because when we were in the shop, she didn't pay, and that made me really angry. Really summarize it to, okay, why are you angry with her? Because she was greedy, or she was unthoughtful. Yeah. And you just hold that situation, that image in your mind when we're answering the questions. Okay. And then another question: what do you need from that person in that situation? So for me, if I was, this is hypothetical, but if Mary was letting me pay for stuff and I didn't believe I should, it would be, I need Mary to pay for the things in the shop. I need her not to be so selfish. I need her to be more generous. Yeah, keep it simple. Just whatever comes to your mind. So I'll give you a moment just to fill that out. Think about what you need from them in order for you to be happy, by the way. Basically, what you're thinking of is, okay, if they were like this and this and this, then I'd feel good about the situation. Okay, so let's move on. So before we do the work, I want to read you a quote about our minds. What's very important for the work is an open mind. If our mind is closed, we have something called the I know mind, the mind that believes it's right and is not going to budge at looking at the situation any differently. The work is not going to work very well for you with a closed mind, because basically when we're fixed and stuck about our opinion and not open to seeing it from a different way, we're not going to shift, and we're not going to look at the other person's point of view, the other person's perspective. Okay, so remember to approach this with a very open mind. Just for now, you can go back to the I know mind after the call. Okay, oops, I knew their approval shouldn't be there. That's from last week's call, but yeah, anyway, we can change it. We can change it up. So what I would love to get right now is a volunteer. I'm not going to shout to choose anybody, but I'd love, if you have something that you'd like to work on, please put your hand up or put a message in the chat window. And I'd really like to be able to demonstrate it live especially for people who are unfamiliar with the work. Oh, lovely. I've got Nicola, who is volunteering. Thank you so much, Nicola. So let me take you off mute, and you can share your brilliance. Okay. Just have to find you, Nicola. Oh, there you are. Okay, unmute. Yay! Hey, Nicola. I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you for taking me on this one, because I am so angry. So this is great.
Super. Okay, who are you angry with? And you can change their name if you want to, but go ahead. Or you can let the world know.
Basically everybody who's bigger, who's taller than 1 meter, but I am willing to narrow it down.
Okay. And you're angry at them because?
I think I'll narrow it down to the Geneva educational offer. Can I do that?
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm furious with the education that is in offer in this town, because it's shockingly medieval.
Okay. Right. So it's the Geneva education system or the Swiss education system?
I'm going to say Geneva, because that's the only one I know, and that's where my children are, and that's where my stress is coming.
Right. Okay. Is there somebody in particular, like a teacher, or it's just the system?
Well, it's the system, but I can narrow it down to the current school's headmaster if it would make things easy.
Right. Yeah, it does help to zone in on a particular person. And why would, let's see though, if we'll do the system or him particularly to find the source of the stress, why is it, what is it about him and the way he's operating that's making you angry?
Because being the director of the school, he's the one who is responsible for the pedagogical approach and responsible for filtering down to the other teachers the approach. And he is the leader of putting in a program where the children are not respected and not learning.
Right. Right. Okay. So, what did you write down for your need? What do
I
you need?
need him to make his educational program better.
Right. Brilliant. Okay. So, let's just get specific. What would better look like?
What would better look like? Um, Better would look like having decent textbooks. Better would look like involving the children in projects. Better would look like, for example, when you're teaching biology or physics or chemistry, having at least a lab, giving some practical experience.
Right.
Better would look like not insulting the children in class in front of the other children.
What is it that annoys you the most if you were to zone in on one aspect?
Bad delivery of class, bad delivery of subject to the kids.
Okay. So the way that the method that they're using. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for that. I'm going to just type in the
I want to share with everybody, I'm a very lazy. I think I've never filled in a judge or neighbor worksheet before, and that's why I always loved you, Neve, because you do it for me, and you really direct me into getting to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I love to do it. It's I get yeah, I really enjoy it. So no problem if you never fill one out, Nicola. No problem. Okay, so our belief was I need the system to be, wait, no, I need the teaching method, right? Let's keep it, yeah, the teaching method to be different. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so can you all see that? I need the teaching method to be different. I think that should appear in your chat window now. That's the belief that we're working. Okay, so just get your best picture, Nicola, up of just that really crappy teaching. Just imagine a teacher in the class, and you probably want to imagine your children in the classroom. I guess that's why it triggers you so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just get a look at your children, and they're experiencing that really archaic teaching method. And for your freedom, for your happiness and inner peace, you need that teaching method to be different. Is it true?
I'm going to say yes to start.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer here, by the way, for everybody, but it is better to keep it to one syllable for reasons that I'll go into in another day. But sometimes we can feel a lot of resistance around that. So, Nicola, let you be a great student and keep your question to a yes or a no. Can you absolutely know that it's true that you need the the teaching method to be different for your inner peace?
No.
And how do you react? What happens when you're believing the thought that I need the teaching method to be different, and you get those images, or your children feedback how archaic the teaching method is?
I get very fearful. I get very fearful for my children's education and their future, and I get very anxious and I get very stressed about it, and then I react with anger.
Where do you feel it in your body?
In my what's it called? See, I didn't have a very good biology teacher. I don't know that part of my body. In actually like my chest.
In your chest? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tension, is it?
and also in my jaw. I immediately clench my jaw and I get into a fight
Right.
mode.
Right.
And my hands get sweaty.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the overwhelming emotion that you're feeling? Anxiousness, is it, or?
There's fear for my children, but there's also absolute frustration that there's something there that I cannot change. I want them to change and they're not.
Right. So what does that bring up? There's something there you cannot change. What emotion does that bring up?
Brings up an enormous irritation. It brings up fury. It brings up rage.
Is there helplessness?
Yes, helplessness, victim, vulnerable. But I prefer to hide that initially with the attack rather than letting the vulnerability come through.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you treat the teachers, the school, Switzerland?
I can imagine the phone calls and the emails. I've been going berserk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And how does that feel inside you?
not peaceful, very stressful,
Yeah.
and
And how
just
do you treat yourself? Go ahead, sorry.
and just continues then the cycle of more frustration, more anger. That even you're trying to make things change and it's not changing. So it's just a perpetual cycle.
Right, right. A perpetual cycle that is costing you. Just notice the amount it's costing you in your health and in presence. How do you treat yourself when you're believing, I need the teaching method to be different, and it's not?
Um, I don't think I'm evolved enough yet to really be able to differentiate how I treat myself. But what I do is without having any restriction, without thinking about it, what I will do is I'll be more tense, I will be more irritable, I won't sleep as well, I'll smoke more, I'll do things just to move that feeling onto something else.
Yeah, yeah. The discomfort or the fury, helplessness, etc. Yeah. Yeah, and just have a look at the images you see of the past or future. When you're believing, I need the teaching method to be different, do you go into the past or the future?
Obviously, I go into the future because um, I suppose society now is very much around the idea that one's children need to have a certain level, a certain certificate in order to be able to achieve in life. And so I've got one foot in that idea, although I've got a foot in another idea as well. But that idea is so ingrained and is thrown around so much that it keeps on coming back as the big fear. My child won't be able to get their certificate.
Right. I'm just noting that down. Children need a certain certificate in order to achieve, you said, huh? Yeah, that would be another belief to question.
Yeah.
And that's also exacerbating the stress. Okay, so what's the stress level on a scale of 1 to 10? When you're believing, I need the teaching method to be different and it's not.
Yeah, when I go into that mindset, the stress levels are 9, 10. I mean, it's enormous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really sapping and zapping the happiness out of our day, right? Okay, so let's have a look at who you would be without that thought. So you get a picture of your children in that classroom, and you can't possibly believe that you need the teaching method to be any different than it is. Who would you be without the thought?
Who would I be? I always like to rather how would I feel?
How would you feel without the thought then?
I would be, all right, so it'd be like, I'm the teaching method. I'm not attaching to the actual teaching method.
Mm-hmm.
I would be,
Yeah. So your children come home and they mention something about it, or you read something about it, or you just think something about the archaic teaching method, and you don't need it to be any different than it is. How does that feel?
it would feel a lot less stressful. I'd be more at peace. I wouldn't, for example, like I don't need I don't know, the paint in a building opposite me to be different. So I'm not even attached to it. It doesn't come in and evoke anything
Mm-hmm.
in me.
Yep.
But I'm always nervous with the work whereby if I detach from that idea, does that mean I'm just going to let things go in a way that I'm not trying to change things? So, for example, my child has left the school, refuses to be in school, and I'm just accepting of that at the moment. And I go and I oscillate between not letting that stress me and say it is what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
another side, is it because I'm doing the work and I am de-stressing slowly around the situation? Am I therefore enabling bad behavior or
Right. I love that question because it's the most common misperception with misconception with the work.
yeah.
And yeah, and it's totally false because what we're doing with the work here is, and we haven't finished the process yet, the steps, but you get to a place where the stress isn't there, but you still have a clear mind. The best example for me of that, if I choose another example, would be if a husband is beating a wife and they do the work on, I need him to stop beating me. So it doesn't mean that you say, oh, without the thought that I need him to stop beating me, you're not going to be sitting there just allowing him to beat you. You're going to still take concrete action and decide, okay, I need, who would I be without the thought? I probably wouldn't stay with him. I would leave. Or it doesn't mean that we just accept the situation. It's just we have a much clearer mind. There's two different ways you can make a decision, and one is with stress attached to it and all that anxiety and tension, where we don't have space in our mind to get a clear perspective on it. And there's another way, which is without the stress. Without knowing that basically all is well, all is as it should be, and we'll come to that in the turnarounds. And I think what I would like in this situation to do is blah blah blah. With children, and you know yourself, especially with older children, but even with younger children, in my experience, you can't force them to do anything.
And in actual fact, now that you just removed, just by saying that you removed some of the stress for me, I suddenly realized that even though it's taken a little bit more time, other things are being put in place, other options are being put in place. But because I was so stressed, I actually couldn't even recognize what I was actually doing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You get a much clearer perspective. You're taking a step back, and I can share a personal example of that, which is quite funny. But let's go to the turnarounds, and we can share examples in there. So what the next part of the process is to turn the thought around. And sorry, the belief is not I need their approval, which is at the top of the PowerPoint slide, but it's I need the teaching method to be different. So the opposite of I need the teaching method to be different is I don't need it to be different. So Nicola, how could it be as true in your life that you don't need the teaching method to be different?
Um, well, it isn't different, and maybe the fact that because it was what it was, my child has been able to make a decision that might actually be better for her because what she was going towards within that school was not necessarily something that fitted with her. So the fact that the teaching was as it was, it might have been the door opening for her.
Yeah, beautiful other way to see it. Yeah, yeah, that's what I see too. And so, just to summarize, what I understand from that as well is it's she gets to make a decision and kind of which to stand up and say, well, no, actually, this isn't for me, and that's admirable. Can you understand? Does that make sense? To
Yeah.
go against the grain. There's a big gift in that, to be able to and it's something I really wish for my own children as well, that they'll be able to say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And Yeah, I don't need the teaching method to be different. Any other example? I don't need the teaching method to be different.
This is a hard one also for me to do because when I think of examples, I don't like to think of project into the future of, for example, even saying that my child may be choosing something else because it's whether it's negative future projection or positive future projection, it still remains
Yep, we
future.
can't know the future. The future is the universe's business, basically. Yeah, it's life's
Yeah.
business. It's not our business.
So
And
what I could maybe do is just look right now.
yeah, can I suggest something, Nicola, just about that though? Something that
Yeah.
helps me, and don't work. If it doesn't work for you, then that's fine. If it doesn't resonate, but what works for me is to think, I don't know the future. That's God's business or life's business, and I trust that there's a good reason why this is happening. It's a friendly, supportive universe, and I trust that there's a good reason why this is happening. I've lots of
Yeah.
evidence in my life to see when things
And
didn't go.
I think the way for me to do that is to forget about the future, look right now, look at myself right now, look at my child right now, and right now, everything's okay right now.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If we're not believing that we need it to be different right now, if we're not believing that we need our daughter to be in school or that she needs that certificate in order to achieve, then right now in this moment, you don't need the teaching method to be any different, do you? Right now in this moment.
Right now in this moment, no.
Great.
And it's actually quite interesting she, because she wasn't in that classroom being taught in that method, she had an experience over 2 days over this weekend that was on a Monday that was phenomenal. She learned so much, and we spoke about it for hours and hours. And that is something that, maybe if we really consider that learning occurs as a lifelong, everyday thing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because she wasn't there, she would never have had this experience had the teaching been better and she was sitting in the classroom.
Right, yeah. Hooray for teaching methods being archaic in Geneva schools. Yeah, yeah, that's great. Any other example? I don't need the teaching method to be different. We're looking for genuine, specific examples of how it's as true that you don't need the teaching method to be different.
Um, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Can I share one then?
Yeah, do
Because it's
please.
it's funny actually that it just happened yesterday, just in time for this call, and I didn't know that it was going to be serving as an example. But my children are actually we're living just over the border in France at the moment, and they're in French schools, and I've been nervous about the public schools in France. That I'd heard really horror stories about them, and my girls just started there this year, and my son, and it's actually I've been really impressed. You know, the lovely teachers and really getting along well. So really pleasant surprise. And then yesterday, my 6-year-old told me something that made me laugh out loud at the time, even though it's really not funny. She said that there was some people naughty in the class, and the teacher said that if 3 of them were naughty, if the two had already been naughty, and she said if one more person is naughty, you all have to put your faces down on the table, your head and your faces down on the table. And which I've never heard of before, and I find it quite a strange punishment. And my little daughter, who's really well behaved in class, I thought, why does? And she said it was going to be for an hour. I don't know where she got that from, but so I said to her, Zara, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And she said, but it's the rule. And I said, well, if it really doesn't feel right to you, then you let the teacher know, and I'll talk with the teacher. So for me, it's a good example. You know, uh, Instead of thinking, oh my God, I have to get my children out of there, I don't like that approach. And I don't need the teaching method to be different because it gives my 6-year-old a chance. I'm letting her know already that you don't have to follow the rules if it doesn't feel right for you, if it doesn't feel fair. So I can see a real gift in that. Does that help?
Yes. I can just see my daughter running with that a very long mile.
Yeah, putting your face on the table. That's something I hadn't heard of before, but I just, yeah, I didn't like the image I got of them all, the faces of shame on the table for crimes they didn't commit. And yeah, it gives our children a chance to speak up about it, something that doesn't feel right for them, if necessary. Yeah, and I'm really glad I have that clarity to be able to say that to her, because I think for me as a child, I just teacher says it, then I have to obey, and yeah, I must be ashamed and put my head down. Okay. Okay, so another turnaround, that's the turnaround to opposite. I don't need the teaching method to be different. The turnaround to self. So instead of the teaching method, I need the teaching method to be different. I need me or my thinking to be different, would be the other turnaround. You turn it around to yourself and look at what about you could
And
be
it wouldn't be,
different.
I need my teaching method to be different.
Right. Yeah, and let's have a look let's zone in specifically on this situation. Your teaching method, maybe to the teachers in the school, or you said you wrote some emails, I'm not sure, to the headmaster or to the.
Yeah, I need my teaching method to be different. I think that's very much right because I'm a strong advocate for education in the
Mhm.
job that I do, etc. And in actual fact, the way I handled the situation is I didn't teach them, the headmaster and the teachers, what they could do. I just slated them for not doing something right. I could have probably gone in there and and
Shared.
consulted them on how to do
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And it's interesting that you brought this up as well because I run a school, and through this experience that has been going on now for a long time, it has enabled me to look at my teaching methods and to make a lot of tweaks, adjustments, and changes from theory to practice as well. So it actually has been an
A
enriching
benefit for you.
experience.
What have you changed as a result? How's it impacted you? Just one example.
For example, we all know that within classes to look at the individual children, individual differences of the children,
Yep.
but it really requires a honed in focus, which I had found, I think I had actually stopped doing that to a large extent. So it's given me a lot more focus, and it's enabled me in the last while to hone in on a couple of children within the groups that I work in, and give them individual attention and changes, and we've had some dramatic
Mm.
changes in these children.
Right. Friendly universe. So indirectly, it's had a positive impact on the children that you're dealing with in your
Yeah.
school.
And it's so funny when I do the work with you, very often when you ask me to write the first sentence, and I know where you're going to take me, so my mind flips quickly to a turnaround, and I say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that turnaround."
I
But
know
it's
that's normal.
so enriching to actually go through the whole process. You get much deeper.
Yeah, that's why they say to trust the process. Even if you say, "Oh, yeah, I hate those first two questions. Is it true?" They're so silly. Can you absolutely know that it's true? But it's really there's a reason behind that, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just trust the process and go with it. So powerful. And we haven't finished yet. Let's have a look again. I need my teaching method. How about, okay, I need my thinking to be different. Replace teaching method with thinking.
Absolutely, because if my initial reaction is always going to be attack, anger, fighting, I mean, I always love the saying, mind the gap between the trigger or the stimulus
Mm.
and the action. There's that gap, and you've got to get into that gap.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so my
yeah.
thinking, as you talk about that filter, I need to be able to catch myself as I'm reacting and rather
Right. Yeah,
work.
yeah. And the way, comes with practice. What helps me is really, before, if I'm really furious, I mean, just say I was going to go and talk to the teacher about their faces on the table story. and I had anger around it. I don't actually. I find it quite funny, but if I did have anger around it, I would question it first. I would go through this process to shift my anger because I know I'm gonna communicate a lot better about it.
Yeah, and I
I'm going to be a
love the
lot
example you
clearer.
always give with your experiences that instead of it creating an anger, you talk about how it creates a curiosity. Like you'd be
Right.
curious why she did that. Or maybe I could be curious at
Yeah.
why this teacher
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
reading out paragraph,
Yeah.
the
Let's get
curiosity.
curious about the headmaster. Let's get curious for a moment about why they are delivering, that teaching method. What might he be believing? What might be going on for him? How old is he, by the way?
Must be
Approximately.
around about our age.
Yeah.
Um, ma- Curious so
Right.
why
Just
is he
to see why he would be supporting that teaching method or showing up the way he is. Because I don't know. I have this image of him being very, it's like this. I don't know what is the share with me the image of him that you have.
um
The anger.
I think it's the cheapest route for him. So he gets people that aren't really teachers because he's trying to run his business. So he gets the yeah. So from a business perspective, boy, is he keeping his costs low.
What might trigger him to do that? What might be the reason behind that?
Uh, what might be the reason behind him keeping his costs low? I don't know. He's got a captive market. You've got to. I mean, people are getting desperate, and when they to to get these children through, and so as the doors close, as I suppose, you put them into private where it's easier to get them in, and you think that they are going to carry it through. But he doesn't get that many because it is bad. It is bad. And I don't know. But I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of something more
Where I was
positive.
going with it is it possibly it could be fear, it could be genuine lack of funding, doing the best he can with what he's got. I don't know. And it would really, to zone in on him and do the work on all your judgments around him would be really beneficial, just to try and understand his perspective, and just look at areas in our life. Be the change you want. Mahatma Gandhi, that quote. Whatever
But
it is.
what's interesting, Nina, you brought that up. Um, he when my child started going there, he did genuinely care, and it was always at 2 minutes past 8. If she wasn't there, I would get a personal phone call. So he did care in that sense. He just doesn't know how to do it in another sense. So when I'm not so angry, I can see how he's possibly trying the best he can the way he knows.
Right.
And even though he's not getting it right, I don't have to get so angry about it because I don't have to think that he's doing it on purpose.
Absolutely. It's not personal. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That
So,
seems to be
go ahead.
that just that being able to see that aspect, that small facet, immediately takes one thorn out.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. Taking a thorn out. That's what it feels like for me too when I shift anger. It's yeah, that's what it is. It's getting free, getting freedom from that pain. So you don't need to go for that massage to get that thorn massaged. It's nice to do that too. But that's why I love this work and it's so powerful. So another turnaround would be the turnaround to other. So now I need the teaching method to be different. So actually, for me or for my children, which would be more accurate? I'm just trying to get the third turnaround to other, but we need two subjects in here. This is the grammar side of the work. Is it for
Well, in
you?
the teaching method, maybe I would need that sentence could be written. I need the teacher to teach differently. So
Right.
to the other,
Right. Okay. So if you have the I need the teacher to teach differently, it would be the teacher needs me to teach differently.
yes, as I said before, I think I could possibly have gone in there and given some suggestions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it is my passion. I do love it. And
Right.
so maybe I could have done, and that would have, if we're going to change the educational system, these are the type of situations when something is going on, we need to be able to teach,
Right. Yeah,
like you're teaching us now the work. You're teaching us something different. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
could,
Can I share where my mind went with that about just similar to what you said, but um, he needs me to teach differently, and I go teach like communicate differently. Maybe he's the type of person who shuts down unless he gets somebody gently communicating with him, if that makes sense.
and which is definitely something I have to learn in my life. And maybe also I need to teach maybe my child differently as well, to say that, there are different ways that you can handle it. I suppose when she sees me handling it that way, she's learning that, and I could be teaching even her differently.
Right.
But then I'm a
Something to look at.
fiery person, aren't I?
Whatever works, as long as it's not causing thorns and stress. We only address it if it's causing thorns and stress. And actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to say in this webinar, I think is really important that anger can be really healthy too, to vent it out. And especially, anger like a child, where you just really let it out and then let go. That's
Yeah.
it's only if it stays and you've got that pain, that's where we address it. Anger can be a great positive catalyst for change. It's not all bad. Um,
Because it brings energy, and
mhm.
I mean, that energy, and happily it started off as anger and it remained as anger. The energy got me out, got me there, got us moving things. But because I just kept it as anger and I didn't change, it was stressful. Whereas I could have gone and done it out of more passion for the subject of education rather than anger
Right,
and fear for my child's education.
right. Yeah, total perspective
That is
shift.
definitely a lesson I've got to learn in my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It seems like you got lots of teachers. Like I said earlier, that those situations will keep showing up for us until we learn. So
In actual fact, her bad teaching method is teaching me to change my reactivity and thought process, actually.
as in you see what it's that it doesn't do any good, so
Yeah, and
it's
I miss opportunities. Yeah.
right. So lots of gifts in the teaching method, the archaic teaching method. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so do you need the teaching? Let's just go back to question one just to check in if it feels different. Is it true that you need the teaching method to be different?
No.
Yeah, if we had more time, I would go through, because I think it's really related to your daughter and the effects that it has on her and fears around
I
that.
think that,
And
that's another worksheet, really.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, to be able to let go of that and trust that she's on the right path.
That's
Then
what I
you
love Katie Byron, how she said that initially she just went through everything. She just wrote a worksheet on everything because there are so many layers and layers, like the onion.
Yep, huge
Those
onion.
layers that cause tears.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just, yeah, everyone just remove the thorn, like you say. I love the analogy. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, just trusting that everything is as it should be, even those negative experiences. Yeah.
Mm.
So thank you so much, Nicola. I really appreciate that.
Thank you,
That
Neve.
was great. Let me just mute you again. Yep. Okay, so how are we for time? Oh my God, a minute left. Okay, so just go slightly over with how to stop needing the other person to change. This was an exercise. We don't have time for doing it now, but it can be really interesting to look at what you think you would have if you got, not their approval, sorry, but if you got them to show up the way you wanted them to. If you like for Nicola, having the school system not be archaic. Well, what do you think you would have if the school system was no longer archaic? And make a list of that. It can be really interesting, what's behind it. And then look at, is there another way that you could get those things on your list instead? Instead of waiting for that thing outside of you to change, how can you change on the inside so that you don't need that thing on the outside to change? Okay. And have a look at if there's space in your world for difficult people also. I love that, to remember. Imagine a world where it was okay for them to show up exactly as they are, as those difficult people or difficult situations, and you still got to have your inner peace. It is entirely possible, I promise you, that those people can, you can get to a place where you can allow them to show up as they are, and you still get to, not to be triggered, and to um, be at peace. Yeah, it's really giving them permission, which is a lot kinder, but giving them permission to be themselves instead of having conditions that you need them to behave a certain way. Okay, so is there any questions about that before we just wrap this up? Let me go to the chat. People saying thank you, Nicola. That was very interesting and powerful, and people that are also agreeing that they felt similarly about education systems. Yeah, not only in Switzerland. Okay, so if there's no questions, then I'm just going to skip forward. The previous slide, close your eyes and imagine with me. Let's just take a moment, even though I know we're going over time, but I wanted to do this exercise just to imagine what it would be like for you to just take a deep breath and relax on your chair and think about that situation in your life that's causing you anger or stress. And imagine that it no longer causes stress. So it's just happening there. You're observing whatever's going on, and you're totally unaffected by it. So you don't have any of those health issues going on. You don't have that tension in your jaw. It's like you're trusting that it's happening like that for a reason. It's showing up like that for a reason. So as a result, you're feeling happier, less triggered, more fully able to enjoy your life, whatever is going on in your life. You're a nicer person to be around. You're not as anxious or as tense, and less doctor visits. There's some of the positives. And that is all entirely possible, I promise you. I'm not saying that I'm a total evolved saint by any means. I still definitely get triggered, and much less than before. And when I do the work. I do this work, and it radically changes my life. And not just me. There's thousands of people with similar testimonials. So I'd like to share with you a 6-week program that I mentioned earlier called Inner Peace for Outer Success that I've created. I'm really excited to share this with you. It's happening on the 9th of April, Thursday. Week 1, we're going to discuss at the end of approval seeking, subject that I also love, that I spoke about last week. Week number 2, we're going to deal with anger, resentment, blame, jealousy. There will be a workbook, by the way, that will talk about things in more detail. And then during our live calls, we will be practicing the work. And there'll be homework in between if you want to do homework. Week 3 is about understanding and reducing shame and guilt. And week 4, understanding addiction and obsessive compulsive behavior. Week 5, out with the self-sabotage. We're going to catch ourselves on all those thoughts that are beating ourselves up, and in with self-love, in with letting go of that ideal self, and welcoming in the real self. It's very powerful. And week number 6, letting go and getting comfortable with discomfort. When we're comfortable with discomfort, we no longer have that need to escape or turn to addictive substances or behaviors. Okay, so the early bird price on that is $297 until March 20th. So if you want to get that price, then please send me an email and pay before the March the 20th. After that, it's going to go up to $497. With it, you'll also, like I said, you get a workbook. You'll get a medication. Well, it's a meditation, which is a medication, and the workbook, meditation, and a Facebook group, a support, to support each other. So I'm really excited about that. Check out www.thework.com for lots of resources about the work to go more in depth with it. And check out my website also. And you can read under Work With Me, you can read more about the 6-week program. I've got the details of that up there now. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. I hope you found it beneficial. Please send me any questions or feedback, and I'll get back to you. And yeah, I'll continue to read any comments after the webinar that you've posted in the chat window. So enjoy the rest of your day and or evening, wherever you are. And I'll see you next week for our next Turnaround Tuesday webinar. Thank you.